Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and this morning I'm looking at a book from the Legal Action Group up to the very high standards that they actually always achieve and of a special importance to us as practitioners. This particular book is looking at the role and how we deal with matters in the Court of Protection. I think this is a very important book. It's cheap for what it is. It's got everything you need in one volume, and it's exactly what I would be wanting as a user of the Court of Protection in whatever capacity. This is the book here. It's got a title, Court of Protection Handbook, a User's Guide. There's the spine and there's the back. Now you can see there's a shaded area which covers the appendices, because you will have the legislation in here, the Mental Capacity Act, of course, precedents and various other matters which would be of direct importance. What you do have, I'll mention the authors in a minute, but what you do have is the paragraph numbering at the sides, and as usual the footnotes, which refer specifically to the relevant legislation and the section numbers. You've got also things such as a few little diagrams to assist when you're trying to deal with a person who's unable to do various things. Then if we go to the front, you can see the front part of it. The book's been written by a number of people. I'll show you the rest of the book in a minute. I'll just go through their names so I got them right. It's Alex Ruck Keene, Kate Edwards, Professor Anselm Eldergill and Sophy Miles. Now those are the people who've written the book, put it together. As I say, it's very much part and parcel of what we'd expect from the Legal Action Group. Now, Sir James Mumby, whom many of you will know, President of the Family Division, has written an extremely important foreword. He's also President of the Court of Protection. And what he has to say, I've seen him speak on many occasions, and he's very, very interesting, very, very important. Every word counts. There's the preface. And if we just move on, you've got a detail about the authors themselves, what they do, where they come from, and so forth. Then you've got the contents section there, which I'll just run through. The appendices are, I think there are 7 altogether, if I look up to G. Then you've got cases. Then you've got, after that, international treaties, conventions, and so forth. There's a table of guidance which is very helpful, I think, as well, because this is not the easiest court to appear in and do business with. There are abbreviations which I found helpful as well, and in addition you've got a main introduction which follows the structure of the book. Can I say that there is in fact a free website to go with this? Now, when I've done the review, we've got to be a bit careful with the URLs, but the website is www.courtofprotectionhandbook.com, and I think that will be it's an interesting development for LAG, and I also think that's very, very helpful for the users of the system. Now, my wife and I, Elizabeth and I, have written a review which looks at this book in some detail and gives us an idea of what value it will have for those of us involved in these difficult and sensitive areas of practice. What we've given it the title of is the following. We've said the realities of the Court of Protection clearly explained for laymen and lawyers alike. And that in essence is what this book is about, because it's aiming to assist where, when you're looking at some of the other publications on the market, they are not the easiest books in the world to use at all. And this one is. So what we say is this: with an ageing population, health and legal issues relating to mental capacity are occurring with increasing frequency and affecting the lives of more people than ever before. It's a sobering thought that, as the expert authors of the book point out, any of us at any time could find ourselves incapable of taking decisions about our health, our welfare, or our finances. That's when this book comes in, and that's when the legislation we've now got is trying to assist this very difficult problem area. So under such circumstances, the Court of Protection was established originally under the Mental Capacity Act 2005, the MCA, and that piece of legislation and the court itself is the ultimate decision maker as to what is going to happen when these types of situation and the issues involved develop. It's therefore timely that this excellent handbook from the ever reliable Legal Action Group has been published, and we thank them for that. Yes, there are books already available which deal with the MCA and the Court of Protection, but this is the first book that explains in understandable detail how the court works and what practices and procedures take place. As I've said before, it's not the easiest of jurisdictions. I've done some of this work and it really can be a bit difficult. The learned authors, all specialists in their fields, have covered the full range of the court's work. In keeping with the traditions of LAG, the handbook is not only authoritative, detailed and reliable, but readable and accessible as well. It's aimed not only at experts or practitioners, but we think virtually anybody involved with proceedings before the Court of Protection, whether represented by a lawyer or not. And as I've said, writing in the foreword, the President of the Court of Protection, James Mumby, states that, quote, "This useful and practical work should be in the hand of every practitioner, and more particularly of every lay user of the Court of Protection." He's absolutely right, because you've got to try and explain, sometimes to quite distraught people, what the role of the court is, and I think at least you've got something here which will back up some of the advice you're giving. The book first examines the historic roots of the Court of Protection, which since 2007 has been tasked not merely with the responsibility to take decisions on property and affairs, but also those relating to health and welfare. In the second section, all matters pertaining to the life of an application to the court are explained, from the initial drafting through to the final determination, plus some such consequential issues as costs, enforcement and appeals. The third section of the book discusses specific issues from ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Method, to instructing psychiatrists in Court of Protection cases, and of course you do need them. Also in the section is an overview of DOLS. Now many of you won't know what DOLS is. This is the Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards. Actually, let me just explain for those who don't know, it's a form, and it's an important one because obviously there can be occasions where liberty has to be restricted for people for their own basic protection. And so there's an examination of that and an examination of cross-border matters where other jurisdictions are involved. And for further information and research, the handbook contains extensive tables of cases and statutes, statutory instruments, European and international conventions and treaties, and a table of guidance, plus the 7 appendices and a detailed index at the back. And let me conclude by saying all users of the Court of Protection, I think, will find this logically ordered handbook, which is clearly well written, of enormous benefit to them, to you in your practice. The authors have stated the law as at the 28th of April 2014, although they have also sought to incorporate, wherever possible, developments to June 2014, and there have been some cases this summer already, so it's important to keep up to date. Subsequent developments will be noted on the accompanying website. I'll just remind you of that because this is an area and also a development which I think is welcome. You've got a website, it's actually mentioned on the back. It's just courtofprotectionhandbook.com, but the point about it is that you do need to be up to date, because if you're doing this sort of case, you do need to know the recent decisions and what is happening, because it's obviously in the interest of everybody to know. Let me just give you an example again. This is the middle of the book, just to show you the book again. You can see there how it's laid out. It's evidence of capacity, paragraph numbering, very helpful. These are the actual appendices. You can see the Act itself, Mental Capacity Act. Then you've got various precedents which are quite useful for reports, that sort of thing, and you've got a whole range of other things right at the back. Statements and letters are also quite important, because with this area of law there's a lot of paper, a lot of letter writing, a lot of form filling and everything else, and you have to know your way around both the legislation and the relevant forms, for instance specifically things like DOLS and various of the other things that are taking place. I'd like to thank LAG for doing this. Again, they really are extremely helpful to all of us, members of the bar and solicitors. Anybody in practice. I would expect to see this book quite clearly in evidence in any court that I go into involved with these matters. I normally see the Legal Action Group publications quite clearly visible in any of the county courts I'm in, and sometimes in the High Court too. They are recognised, I think, as the leaders for us, and for the work they do as really the top, specifically to try to get to the issues that we need to present to the courts. So I'd like to thank the authors and the organisation very much indeed for what they've produced, and wish them well with this new edition. Thank you so much. Bye bye.